Jean Tanner is with us. Jean was the hostess of the event involving Governor Reagan, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first I want to ask Jean, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Sioux City, Iowa, the Midwest, and on my 4th birthday we moved to Venice, California. And I've never been back to Iowa. One of these days I'll get back.
Never been back.
Never been back.
And what was the occasion of your first trip to the Eastern Sierra and Mammoth Lakes?
Well, my wonderful Alpha Phi sorority sister, Mary Russell at the time, arranged for me to have a job at Camp High Sierra in Mammoth, where she had worked a number of summers. So I went up. That was my first time to the High Sierra. And so there I worked for a couple of summers. And Mary met Lou at Mammoth Pack Outfit, if I recall correctly. And I met Bob Tanner at one of the dances at Camp High Sierra. Mm-hmm. And those were our future husbands.
Okay. And when did you decide that Mammoth was going to be the place that you were going to stay and work?
I was getting my master's degree at Cal State Long Beach, and I asked Bob, I said, yes, I'll marry you, but I'm going to finish my master's degree. So I finished that, and then we were married. We both had teaching credentials. They needed teachers badly in Bishop. We both had jobs in Bishop then. And he taught in the high school, I taught in the elementary school. A couple of years later, we reversed, and I taught in the high school, he taught in the middle school. Mm-hmm. So it was really because we both loved mules, we both loved horses. I think that was probably what brought us together. And I had ridden all my life, and so the idea of meeting someone who knew how to ride a horse, that was pretty interesting to me.
When did the two of you make the commitment to own and operate the Reds Meadow Pack Station?
We learned that Arch Mahan, who owned Reds Meadow, which is actually in Madera County, separate from Mammoth Lakes, had Reds Meadow for sale. We worked for a couple of summers at the Forest Service up in Levining. Then we worked for McGee Pack Outfit for a summer. Then we worked for 2 summers for Arch Mahan running his Agnew Meadows Pack Station. And then we bought the whole outfit in 1960.
What's it involved to operate a pack station down in the valley of the Middle Fork of the San Joaquin?
Well, in this case, Reds Meadow is also a resort. So, and it's 2 pack stations, which are 5 miles apart, and at that time there was just the dirt road between the 2 pack stations. Now it's a paved road between the 2. We had no telephone except for a crank phone that we could crank and call the corral, maybe we'd call the store, maybe we'd call the Mule House Cafe. We had a generator. We had no rural electrification, you could say. So we had the resort, which has a store, and it has cabins, and it had boats at the time on Salcher Lake, and it had the cafes I've mentioned. So mainly, I would say I ran the resort part of it, and Bob ran the pack stations, and I did the books, but he was more involved with the horses and mules. I had my own horse up there, but we were also, we had 1 child, and then we had a 2nd child. So I tried to spend time with them also.
Now, Jean, when I interviewed you for my book, you gave me a great line, which I used, and that was, "We weren't starstruck." That was your response to when I asked about Governor Reagan coming, but you told me that you're accustomed to hosting celebrities at your pack station. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, we had John Wayne come down. He was filming North to Alaska, and I think perhaps Lou had stock on that shoot. It was being shot at Hot Creek. And so on a Sunday, John Wayne, his son Patrick, Henry Hathaway, a very famous director who I now know who he is, Capuchin, the French film star, came down and had lunch at the Mule House Cafe. And I'm sorry I didn't take any photos. I didn't think of it at that time. But later I contacted his agent, and he sent a nice photo autographed there. So we'd met John Wayne. Robert McNamara had been their
Secretary of Defense.
Secretary of Defense, right, and he was a hiker, an avid hiker. And I remember that hikers would be coming toward them, and as McNamara and his party was going that way, and they would suddenly realize who had just passed, but by then they couldn't stop him because he was on his way. You know? But it was also with Bill Jantz, who developed Westwood. It was the chairman of the board of Levi Strauss, Walter A. Haas. They had all been University of Berkeley students together. Mm-hmm. And of course Margie McNamara, who started the Reading is Fun program. So, and they stayed in one of our rustic cabins. I mean, they were wonderful people, you know, smart. Robert McNamara really listened, and he really thought of all the options before he ventured an opinion. And later I would meet Bob Mathias, and I would meet Debbie Boone and her parents and take them to Rainbow. So Reds Meadow had Art Linkletter, it had Bob Cummings, you know, before we ever got there. Because those people could be stars and no one bothered them. And I think today the same thing is true.
When did you first hear that the governor might be making a visit to make an announcement?
I don't recall just when it was, but I would assume that I knew before I went to take our daughter, accompany her on a ski racing camp in Bariloche, Argentina.
Argentina?
Yes. And so I went there and tried skiing, but I realized that skiing from a very steep mountain, the deep powder, is not that easy, actually. But I did stay down there, and then I arranged to come home early because I knew that Reagan was coming. And I thought perhaps Nancy would come also, because I wanted to be a hostess to her, but she did not come.
Yeah.
So now on that morning, when you got up to get ready, what was happening at the pack station?
Well, I remember Lou brought some stock. I remember some other packers brought their stock. I mean, Bob had made all these arrangements before I got home. And I don't recall any confusion whatsoever. I mean, they're all professionals. Everything seemed to go very smoothly.
Now, the governor arrived, I believe, according to the record I saw, around 9 o'clock.
That sounds about right.
Who came with him?
Who came with him? Oh, well, let's see. Ike Livermore, I think, was not able to make the trip, as I recall.
No.
I don't recall just who all was there, but I do remember that there were the security people. And they said to me, well, we'll just fan out in the wood. And they were horseback riders also. They said, we'll just fan out in the woods, you know. And I thought, what are they afraid of? Are they afraid of bears? Are they afraid of bucks? Are they afraid of Boy Scouts? What could it be? And I said, well, that's a good idea, but our horses are trained to ride single file down the trail, and I think you would have a difficult time getting them off the trail. So the horses came through, and so did the Secret Service people.
Now, there was one point where the governor was kind of anxious to take off, and he mounted his horse and said, "We're out of here," right?
That's right, right. He was a cowboy through and through, and a gracious one at that.
And then everybody else sort of followed in line?
Oh, yes, yes. It's very democratic.
There were some reporters that were a little bit out of their element, weren't they? A little bit not quite up to the skills required for a trail of that sort?
Well, I imagine Lee as a packer would be better able to answer that. I simply had my own horse to worry about and keep an eye on those Secret Service men.
And were you bringing up the rear, or were you closer to the governor?
Well, I must have been fairly close to the governor, because when we got there, when we arrived, he joked. He said, "Let's build a shopping mall here." Joking, of course, because he truly was quite an environmentalist.
Yeah. And you heard him speak. What is your recollection of the announcement that he made?
I don't remember about presenting this document, but obviously he did, and it certainly was a welcome surprise to all of us.
So you didn't expect him to say that the road funding was canceled?
I think I had no opinion on that, because Reds Meadow location is remote from Mammoth, so therefore I wasn't involved in the petitions that were going around to stop the road and so forth. I knew that our unpaved dirt road kept plenty of people out as it was. So I was not that political or that involved about it.
Jean, tell our audience what you're doing now. How are you entertaining yourself these days?
Well, since I moved back to Southern California, where I had lived many places in Southern California, I took an on-camera commercial acting class, and the teacher sent me a video, and she sent it off to an agent who happened to be the top commercial agent in Los Angeles. So I mainly do TV commercials now, which is a lot of fun, and I also took up ballroom dancing. So I do some teaching of that.
Wonderful, wonderful. I've run out of questions. Is there anything else you'd like me to ask you? Did we cover pretty much all you were thinking we were going to do?
I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and you're making this story possible to so many people. And I know that your book is going to be in Bishop several places. It's at our son Bobby's Rock Creek Lodge. It's at our Bobby's now running Reds Meadow. It's there. I think Dan Dean, the president of Mule Days, asked me this morning, he said, "Where can I buy the book?" And I said, "Well, the Spellbinder bookstore in Bishop." I think it's wonderful.
What is your son Bobby doing now?
Well, Bobby, by the way, Bishop Mule Days is very big, and Bobby was in the very first Mule Days and has been participating ever since. He has his own 20 mule team, which he rides on a wheeler and directs the team with a jerk line all the way down. And he makes appearances in Bishop, Death Valley, Idaho, etc. He has taken over on Reds Meadow, and he also has Rock Creek Lodge. And he also is married and has a little 5-year-old boy. So Bobby is kind of all over the place. And we're in no competition with Mary and Lou, because we're all friends. At least we say that.
Here's another dynasty, a Tanner packing dynasty, just like there's a Roser dynasty.
Well, if you wish to call it that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Great.